Could you sit down, please?
I want to. I'm trying.
Could you try harder?
Yes. Oh, okay. I'll just use this trash can. There's hardly any trash in it at all.
Hey there, is it Billy Mpetha? Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, I apologize beforehand. Congratulations on winning the 11-second club. You have a great animation here. My name is Shad Bradbury. I've animated for about, I would say 15 years, a little over. Professionally, I've been teaching for a few years now, animation mentor. I'm currently directing an animated short called Run Tote Run. Before that, I was an animator at Pixar and Sony, Rhythm and Hues, and Tippett. I think the last film I actually worked on was Coco. And if I don't have a website, but if you are wanting to kind of look me up, you could just Google, obviously, my name, Shad Bradbury, and I think a few things come up, and you can kind of learn about me from there if you'd like. Anyway, enough about me, Billy. Let's look at this great animation.
Could you sit down, please?
I want to. I'm trying.
Could you try harder?
Yes. Oh, okay. I'll just use this trash can. There's hardly any trash in it at all.
Could you sit down, please?
So yeah, a really strong shot overall, and I can tell you put a lot of work into this. Particularly, like your line quality is exceptional. You've even gone in and done tones to the character. This is definitely a final shot, so it's kind of an odd time to give you some notes, and particularly some of the notes I'm going to give you. So keep that in mind. I'm just going to give you some thoughts to think about. And it might be some things that in future shots you can be like, oh, maybe it'll help you in future shots. Think about that. And then I have a few animation notes as well. But overall, I think this is really strong. But when I look at it,
please.
Just with an animator eye, there's nothing really that stands out to me as like, oh, okay, no, like a big red warning sign. I don't see any of those things.
I want to. I'm trying.
Could you try harder?
Yes.
I definitely feel that there's a few things that you might want to play around with that could improve it, and we'll get into those. But first, like story-wise, I just want to quickly go over this. And this is like one of those notes where it's like, okay, obviously you're probably not going to do this. But the story of this shot is about a woman who says, sit down, and then you have this kind of bumbling character who's like, I want to, and she's looking around, right, for something to sit down, but there's literally nothing to sit down. There's no chairs, right? And then she sees this trash can, and she's like, "Oh, okay." And so she takes out the trash, and then what? And then she sits down. And I really think that's what this shot is missing. To be honest, I thought the end was somewhat anticlimactic because you end with the head in the garbage can.
At all.
And I guess you could say that was part of the humor. But for me, I think what would be funnier is to actually see this character sit down on a trash can and then kind of look dumb sitting down on that trash can, right? I think I remember seeing this movie. I think it was Mindy Kaling movie. I forget the name of the movie. But I think the trash can was like really tiny, and she sat down on it. And I remember that was the reward of the shot, seeing, how dumb she looked sitting on that trash can. She went to all this effort, and then she looked dumb. And so that's like the payoff of the shot. And so I kind of feel like you're missing that. If I were to do that with this shot, what I would do is you've got one, you throw out one piece of trash, two pieces of trash, three pieces of trash. After that, I don't think you're really gaining anything by throwing out more trash. So from here, 238, I would cut everything after 238, and then I would just go to her flipping the trash can around and sitting down on it. And I would set it up in a way to where she looks, your character looks dumb sitting down on this trash can. Maybe the trash can in your scene is too big. Maybe it's too small. Maybe it's just, it's the way she sits down. And I think if you were to do that, I think that would be your payoff, seeing the character just sit down and then be like looking at the audience, like looking at not the audience, but looking at whoever she's talking to in a kind of like cheeky fashion. Like, is this good? So anyway, story-wise, that was like the one thing that kind of felt to me like it felt like maybe that there might be something stronger there. Going from there, though, let's kind of look at some.
Could you sit down, please?
It's nice to see that you have some some eye darts at the beginning here, which is really strong.
Could you sit down, please?
I want.
One thing about your hands here that I didn't really get a sense of, and
Could you sit down,
probably
please?
because you're pushing how much the hands go to camera and like this, which I love to do personally, but I kind of miss the feeling of this, like and I think that's what you're going for, because this is someone who's not being aggressive at all. Like, you don't want the hands to feel like they're coming towards the camera or towards the character. You want the hands overall to feel like at their base. You want them to feel like right? Like, it's like, oh, defensive. You want a character that's feeling like, oh, and so overall your base movement for your hand should feel like A pose, B pose. And then in between there, then you can have this this kind of like stutter step, right? Where basically you would just, it's been a long time since I did 2D, but I did it in my first job. You would just basically, if if this was your hand here, if this was your A pose, and then this was your B pose, right, for your hand. So you want something like this. You would in between it directly. So like this would be frame, this was frame 1, and this was frame, let's see, 3, 5, 7, 9. Let's say this is 11. You would do this. You would in between it directly. So you would have you'd have 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. But then you would I forget what it's called, like stutter step. You would basically play 1, 5, 3, 7, 11, 9. And so you would bounce back and forth. So that would give you this like type of feel. So that's maybe the way I would have approached this hands a little bit. I think the key thing.
I want.
The key thing is, I think, getting the hands to feel like they're going back.
Could you sit down, please?
I want to.
And I kind of get a little bit of a flashing feeling with the hands, and I get more of a sensation like the hands are coming forward.
I want to. I'm trying.
The other thing that I see in this is some of the lip sync.
Please.
I want to. I'm trying.
I want to. I wonder if.
Could you sit down, please?
I want to. I'm trying.
I want to. I wonder if your I want to is a little bit too big. I wonder, because you go from here, then you go all the way to here, and then you go back. So you go forward, you go to this shape, and then you bounce all the way to there. So from 49 to 50, you go to here, and then you bounce all the way back to here. And I'm not sure you necessarily need that. We can quickly give this a try and see if that's going to work. But it feels like you could probably do about half of what of what you did. Just so that your corners of your mouth aren't popping back and forth. And it'll also give, it'll make your extremes feel more extreme instead of always going from boom, 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 because that normalizes it when you pop from A to B, A to B, A to B, constantly back and forth. But if you have smaller shapes in between and then you hit your extremes very rarely, your extremes will feel more.
I want to. I'm trying.
Yeah, there we go.
I want to.
I think you could actually do it even smaller than what I've done. And I don't know the exact shape that you're going to want to do. I don't know if you necessarily want to copy the shape that I'm doing. It's just about minimizing how much your corners actually go out in this.
I want to. I'm trying. Could you? I want to. I'm trying.
Yep.
Could I want to. I'm trying. I want to. I'm trying.
Could you try hard?
And then I'm trying sounds, it's bigger because you go, I want to. I'm trying.
I'm trying.
Could you try hard?
I'm trying.
Could you try hard?
Which is cool.
I'm trying.
Could you try harder?
Yes. Oh, okay. I'll just use the trash
Cool.
can.
And then I have a few other notes, and both of them are about basically the same thing. One thing I'm noticing kind of throughout your animation is you tend to move the whole character when you move something. So you rarely have isolation of movement. And so that's one thing I'd like you to think about moving forward with your your next shots and even you might want to, if you were to use this for your demo reel, you might want to consider isolating some of your movements. Because right now you go, let's take,
I'm trying.
I'm trying. And your whole body, your head, and your arms move.
You try harder.
Yes.
Yes. And your head moves, your body moves, your hands move. And then,
Oh, okay. I'll just use
I'll just use, and your body moves, your head moves, your arms moves. And there is a time and place, definitely to do that, because it's a way to emphasize something more. But when you do that on every single beat, it tends to feel just like it tends to not be as strong as opposed to like isolating a movement. So let me show you a few examples.
I'm trying.
Could you try harder?
Yes.
I wonder if this I don't know if you need this. So let's play around and see if you might be able to get away with this, because it might be yes. You may connect more with the character if you don't have this big flashing hands coming up from the screen. So we're gonna try to quickly do this. This may this also may help alleviate some of the overacting type of feel that some animators may say. I know that's more of a stylistic choice, some places would say some studios overact and others don't. And so it's really about a style. So there isn't really a wrong or right, but let me, I may not end up doing all of these, but let's see if we can just get enough so that we can actually get a sensation of if this is the right idea or if it's the wrong idea. Might not work. Let's see.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
Yes. How many more frames do I have to do this? Yeah, I'm just going to do it for a few more frames, but I feel like looking at this is the right idea for what I would suggest you trying. It also gives our eye a little bit of a break because you've already got your hands up into the screen a few times, and so constantly flashing back and forth, having something big flash into the screen, something to keep in mind that you may not want to do over and over again. And I'm a big fan of anime where they do that a lot, where they really play with the depth of field.
Yes.
It's hard because
Yes. Oh.
yeah. It might also be a situation where it looks like you've done it, but you might be able to push the idea even more, where you really sell the idea of the shoulders coming up. So maybe the shoulders aren't so high beforehand. And so it really feels like she goes, yes. That'll make her feel me.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would consider playing around with that.
Oh, okay. I'll just use the trash can.
This is another place where I feel like it would be really strong if you isolated the hands and you didn't do the whole head and body going back, where you were like, oh, this is the trash can. If you look at like Cloudy with the Chance of Meatballs, they do a lot of that really well, successfully, where they isolate movement. They have a character hit a pose and then they have one part of the body move. A good thing that I always try to keep in mind is, I think it's like an old quote and I always mess it up, but one of the old 2D masters is like something like he tried to keep one part of the body still while another part of the body moved at a decent speed, and then another part of the body moved at a fast speed, basically trying to get contrast in timing, where one thing was moving really quickly while another part of the body isn't moving. And I definitely think that's something that might amp up this shot, especially, and I think it will also fit the style that you're going for.
Just use
I'll just use You also might, I think you're playing it on
Use
the
the
beat.
trash.
I could be wrong.
Okay,
Let me,
I'll just use the trash can.
I'll just use a trash can. I think there might be some humor in not playing it on the beat as well. That means, so playing it on the beat basically means right now you're hearing the sound.
I'll just use
Right? And so it makes sense that you act on the beat. I'll just use but a lot of times it becomes a lot funnier, especially in comedy when you're trying to play with timing, is to play it off the beat. So you go, I'll just use right? Do you see that? It's like, I'll just use and it can be difficult to do sometimes, but as animators, we often animate on the beat too often, and we don't play around with animating off the beat. So you might want to play around with this where you go into this,
just use
and then maybe she brings the character brings out her arms.
the trash.
And then that's also a place where you can isolate that movement, where you'd be like, I'll just use and then the head, right? Like you probably can't. I'll just use
Oh, okay. I'll just use the trash can.
It'll also give you like we'll be able to lock onto the face a little bit more. Like so instead of your head moving back and us I think you change your expression on the move. Yep. We'll be able to see her go from and our face will be a lot more still.
Just use the trash can. There's
another thing to keep in mind is in this action right here is that it was starting to feel a little bit stiff in terms of her leaning forward. It kind of feels like there's a pivot point. Let's get a different color. Yeah. It kind of feels like there's a pivot point right here, and you have like kind of a stiff thing, and you rotate around this. If you notice, it's like boom, boom, boom. See how it feels like there's a pivot point here, and this is all rotating around that point. What I would consider doing is maybe leading the action with. It seems like the appropriate thing here would lead the action with the head. So you would have the head actually move first, and the body would kind of pretty much be static. You probably wouldn't pixel lock it. So let me kind of give you an idea of what I'm suggesting. So if this is your A pose, something like this, that's your A pose. Maybe your B pose is like you keep your body in exactly the same position that it was in. Not exactly. I should. I'll. So you would move the head first while the body stays relatively static, and then you would move the body. I think you also you can feel the same thing here. When you go back from here, it feels once again like it's pivoting from there, and this all goes back, and then it goes like that. So one thing you might want to do is have the head, the body pretty static right here for this next frame, and then move the head, and then have the body follow. Just separating those limbs a little bit, the chest and the head might help that a little.
Use the trash can. There's hardly any trash in it at all.
Could you sit down?
I don't think I have any other
Okay, I'll just use the trash can.
notes for. One thing I really like that you've done is how you're seeing the cheek push up against the eye. It's really selling this. I don't. Yeah. Okay. Maybe I'll do this.
I'll just use the trash can. There's hardly any trash in it at all.
Cool.
Could you sit down, please?
I want to.
Could you try?
I want to.
I want to.
harder?
I want. I want to.
Just use I want to.
Could you try harder?
I want to.
Could you try harder?
Yes. Oh, okay. I'll just use this trash can. There's, hardly any trash in it at all.
Could you sit down, please?
Right?
I want to.
Could you try harder?
Yes.
Cool. So those are my overall thoughts. I think this shot is really great. You put a lot of work into it. Like I said, those are things to just keep in mind. I definitely think as you move forward, trying to think about isolation of movement. I think that'll be a key thing. Also, us not acting on the beat as well might help you as moving forward. Anyway, beautiful shot, and keep on animating. I'll see you. Bye.